Hello, I'm Michael Voris.
And I'm Father Pablo, Catholic missionary priest. We really want you to watch every week the one true faith. Had you left that one true faith, please come home. We're waiting for you because we love you.
Hello again, and welcome to The One True Faith, the show we say is the most disturbing hour on television because we talk about eternity, and tonight we're going to be talking about eternity, really eternity. We're talking about heaven, which is our goal, although most of society today doesn't really believe that. There is a understanding in humanity, in human history, that man longs for heaven. Now, different people think heaven's different things, but we all long for something greater, something bigger. The communists longed for heaven. Really, they're atheists, but they longed for heaven. They called it utopia and thought it happened here on earth. The Nazis longed for heaven. Even liberals long for heaven. They just don't have the slightest idea what it is. The desire for heaven, this is something that is intuitive to man, that there is something greater than me, something that needs to fulfill me that is outside of me. And all of history is a story of man's longing for heaven, for something out there, beyond me, that for which I was made, my goal, why I exist. This is why ancient civilizations used to, when they'd bury somebody, the cavemen and the Egyptians, whoever would bury somebody, they'd pack all kinds of stuff in with them for the journey. They'd give them blankets and food and little freeze-dried this and that and the other, and figure, well, I've got to get on this boat and they got to pay the guy, and they put all kinds of things in with them, supplies for their journey, because they were going somewhere else. They were leaving this existence and going to another one. All of human history has always had this. Historians divide human history into what they call 21 different civilizations, periods in time of great empires and things like that. 20 of those civilizations, those periods, have always had a society rooted in the idea that there were gods or a god, that mankind moved towards this. That was the goal of mankind. And these beliefs were underpinned by everything that happened in society. In the 21st civilization, in which the period we're in now, society doesn't have that anymore. It doesn't exist. Society has kind of walked away from God in the sense of not even, I don't want to believe this particular religion or that particular religion, has walked away with this as the idea of this isn't really true at all, that there really sort of isn't a God. If there's no God, there's no heaven. And large swaths of current society all over the world believe this, and they live accordingly. Modern man can't answer the question, why does he exist? He can't answer the question. How is it that modern man seemingly knows everything, knows something about everything, but knows nothing about everything? The explosion of knowledge, if you want to call it that, we so much knowledge at our fingertips now we can't process it all. And yet, the root of this, knowledge itself, seems to have exploded in this explosion of knowledge. We have all of this information, and we have no idea what it's for. Nothing. We have what do we do with it? We send people to the moon. They come back with rocks. Oh, look, it's a rock. Yeah, look, it's a rock. What about it? I don't know. It's a rock. It's from the moon. It's got to do with me. I'm not sure, but it's a rock. This is sort of, man starts to spin his wheels. If there's no road to heaven, then we're just on a treadmill spinning around. It's either one or the other. And the sad part about this is man can no longer, individuals can really no longer look out to society to help them understand this, because individuals have abandoned this, and enough individuals have abandoned this, that there is really no sense of this in society anymore. So people are just kind of wandering around aimlessly. They don't know why they get up in the morning and go to work to do something. I don't know. We just go. Why? I don't know, because you got to pay the mortgage. Why? I'm not sure. Because I need a house. Why? I don't know. Question marks, question marks. The 21st era of civilization or 21st civilization is just a stream of question marks with no answers at all. There's no one to help point the way and say, that's the way to heaven. This is what you need to do. So what we have to do as individuals is now do what we did originally, way back at the beginning of the first civilization. And that's look inside ourselves and listen to what's going on inside. Really listen to what's going on inside. There's a fundamental reordering that's happened in society, and we have to see that, we have to understand that, and we have to live our lives accordingly. This period is unmatched in all of human history. This is a fundamental change, a break from the past so radical that who we are as a race, as a species, is affected at its core. It's very different. The popes have been warning about this for the last 100 or so years, 200 years, really. So, the true goal of man's existence has been usurped, twisted, stolen by those who trumpet nature, and those who say that man is the end of existence. Let's take a look at these two things real quickly. Those who trumpet nature and the conquest of nature as the goal of existence are really nothing more than modern-day witch doctors. They're bearing very little difference. There's a very little difference between witch doctors and the magicians of old and modern-day scientists. Not that science is bad, but people who participate in science for science's own sake. That's just witch doctory. That's all it is. It's magic. Magicians and scientists do the same thing. They each seek to subdue the powers of nature and bring them under the control of man. The only difference is their technique. Witch doctors and magicians cast spells. Scientists use microscopes and test tubes and needles. The only difference is their technique, not their goal. When the spell is cast or the test tube has been emptied and there's no other experiments left to do, they reach in their little magic bag, and what's at the bottom? What do they pull out of the hat, of the top hat? They pull out death, because there's nothing else left. Now, what about the people who say that man is his own end? Doesn't even make sense. But there are people who live by this philosophy that man is his own end. What about people who say that? Heaven is not in controlling nature, but in becoming one with nature. That our goal is to realize that we need to reunite ourselves to nature. I am dust after all, right? That's what many of these people believe. I am dust. These are depressing views of the world. Very depressing views of the world. I'm dust, as is all of nature. Finally, it's all dust. It's all going to turn to dust one day. So, I'll cooperate with my nature for the day because the eternal night is approaching. So I'll go through, I'll plod through, and I'll wait for death because I'm going to go back to dust. These are, in the final picture, the only visions of life that there is. There are for the believers the kingdom of heaven. There is for the scientists the kingdom of power. And there are for the people who concentrate on man the kingdom of nature. There are no other kingdoms. So, depending on your worldview, one of those kingdoms is the one that you live in. But power and nature, as we know, never satisfy. They might for a while, a little bit, but they're illusory, like food in a dream. St. Augustine, in his Confessions, had a marvelous, marvelous way to put this. He said, food in dreams is exactly like real food, yet what we eat in our dreams does not nourish us, for we are dreaming. That's brilliant. That's brilliant. It looks, feels, tastes, it even seems, because of the frame of mind you're in, that you're being satisfied. But you always wake up. You always wake up from a dream. The reason that they're illusory is because these things man has placed in place of God and made them idols. And idols, no matter how hard or passionately we worship idols, the heart of the worshiper will always be broken when it comes to bowing down in front of idols, because an idol cannot give what your heart desires. Simply can't give it. Idolaters treat God as though he is dead. And consider this for a moment. Let's consider the death of God. If God is dead, what do we have? Well, once heaven is no longer a father, earth is no longer a mother. The spirit, the life of earth leaves. It leaves our consciousness because it doesn't exist anymore. What gives the life? Well, it's just there. So what is it ultimately? What is earth ultimately? A bunch of atoms, the molecules all flying around, smashing into each other for some period of time. And what happens? They finish their orbits, they decay, they turn to dust. The fundamental substance of the universe in that view is that death, that the substance of the earth is dust, and it's death. It's depressing. It's depressing. The death of God also reduces man to nothing more than a natural object, just something, another part of nature. When man is reduced to just the natural, when man is deprived of the supernatural, when that supernatural life isn't to be admitted or accepted, then what do we become? We just become the dust of death as well. There isn't anything else. So the profound thought at the end of all of that is that when God is dead, death becomes God. It's horrible. This is our view of ourselves, but this is the view modern man walks around with every day. They may not have thought about it in this way. This is what most of the world walks around believing inside. This is what they believe. This is why the history of revolutions is so dismal. Is there one revolution in all of human history that has actually lived up to its ideals? No. The French Revolution, where did it go? It ended at the guillotine and eventually led to Napoleon. How about the New Order of the Nazis? All it led to was the old barbaric disorder from 1,000 years earlier. In Russia, the much heralded and celebrated dictatorship of the proletariat went straight to the front door of the KGB. It's death. Death is the great equalizer that lies at the axe. That's the axe at the root of all of these false kingdoms. Death is what everyone has to face eventually. We have to. No matter how we've lived, everybody comes to that point and stares death in the face for that moment. And whatever has happened before, you can't change. None of us can change it. Modern man seeks joy in pleasure, earthly pleasure, and it's simply not possible. Earthly pleasure can't give you joy. It's like searching for the ocean in rivers. You can't find it. You can't tell exactly where one ends and the other begins, but it's not there. The ocean is not in rivers. One images the other, sure. Of course it images the other, but the image is always a mirage. The ocean simply isn't there. No matter how much you look in the river for the ocean, you're never going to find it. So we need to turn inward to expand outward. What? This is the crazy talk of love. This is the crazy talk of love. When you are in love, everything is topsy-turvy from what the whole world thinks, right? When you're in love, doesn't everybody you know around you go, discount them, they're in love, they're crazy. There's all that silly stuff, leaving notes in somebody's lunch. What's wrong with that? You go crazy because you see the world differently. Love looks out on the world and sees the butterfly when everyone else sees a caterpillar. Love looks at a lump of coal and sees a diamond, sees what it will become. God looks at the sinner and sees the destiny of a saint. That's what love does. When you look out on the world like that, it's a whole different type of world. Happiness lies outside of each one of us, but the map to find it is inside. How twisted sounding is this? You got to go in here to go out there. Why don't you just go out there? Because you don't know where you're going when you're out there. That's why. The heart's like this lockbox with the map inside. If you ignore the heart, that means you never find the map. And without the map, you're never going to get where your heart desires. And our hearts desire this. Oh, they desire it. This is why the sinner lies on his bed at night and cries inconsolably, because he has looked everywhere and cannot find that which his heart desires. For all his abandonment to pleasure, he doesn't know who he is, and he doesn't know where he is. This is exactly what our blessed Lord says when he says it so many times over and over and over in so many different ways in the Gospels. Seek ye first the kingdom of God, for where your treasure is, there lies your heart as well. That's what he means. Go in here, and you'll go out there, and you'll know where you're going out there. What is heaven other than the possession of God? What is it? God, the infinite, that for which the heart longs and needs and looks everywhere for, but can't find. The world can't contain the infinite. Nature or man can never contain the infinite. You could rule the world, and you won't be happy. Creation could no more put boundaries on its creator than I could hold a cup up here, and all of the air would be in the cup. It's not possible. It can participate, but it can't contain it. God has fixed in us this desire for the infinite. He's put it in place for us. Only once in all of Scripture does the word muse appear. It appears in Psalm 143. David says, I muse on all your deeds. The works of your hands I recall. The works of your hands I recall. I stretch out my hands to you. I thirst for you like a parched land. David got that because that's how God made David. He made him to thirst for him. See, the believer sees God with the eyes of love. They have faith in his promise, and they long for him with hope. Did you hear that? Faith, hope, and love, the theological virtues, all three of them always point to God. The moral virtues make a cross and point to other people. Faith, hope, and love. That's the longing of the heart. See, this is the great meaning behind the Beatitude. Blessed are the pure of heart, for they shall see God. See God. See him as he is. Not only in the next life, not only at the last day, but in the here and now, right now. Partially. First, we don't see him face to face now, but we see him partially. We know that God is out there. We know God is out there. The lover sees what the mere scientist or naturalist does not see, because love has X-ray vision. Love can see a heck of a lot. God sees the heart. The outward's passing. Whatever's on the outside is passing. All of it. That part the naturalists and scientists are right on. It's dust. The outward's passing. The inner is eternal. Not just longing, it's eternal longing. The heart sees the heart. This is summed up beautifully with a very short phrase, a very short passage from the 42nd Psalm. And think about it as we go into the break. Deep calleth unto deep. Doorway to heaven. We'll be right back, right after this. Well, welcome back. We're talking about heaven, and how do we get there? It's a pretty profound question. I don't know. I've got a general idea. Love God, do the right thing, trust in his love and mercy, love him, have faith, have hope. I think that's how you get to heaven. That's what Jesus has told us. So, I believe it. What about the journey, though? What about we get through this journey? What do we do? Well, let's take a look. Every journey begins with questions, right? Every single journey begins with a question. What do I need to pack? Where am I going? What's the ticket? A zillion questions. Questions are the way to heaven. Nobody starts off on a trip with answers. They start off with questions. If God came to you, let's do this little exercise. If God came to you and said, I'm going to give you the opportunity to make any world you want individually. Think about this. So God's standing in front of you. You can make any world you want. You can have anything you want. What world would you make for yourself? This is your chance to make what you would believe to be heaven on earth. How would you do it? Don't mess it up. You get one shot. Get one shot. So what would you get? Power? Dominion? You know the old expression, it's good to be the king. Would you make yourself the king or the queen? Yeah, you know you would. Would you have millions of adoring fans? Well, yeah, it's better than people throwing tomatoes at you. But let me ask you, wouldn't that get boring after a while? No matter what world you made for yourself, regardless of what it would be, wouldn't it get boring? Seriously. Look, most people on earth, as we know, by the time they get to 80 or 90 or so, we're ready to die. We kind of have that, sort of seen it all. There's not really much, it's just ready to die. But what kind of heaven ends in death? It's not right. So wouldn't heaven, however you made it, wouldn't heaven, your heaven, get boring after 80 or 90 centuries? Would you get a little bored in your own heaven? What kind of heaven gets boring? What kind of heaven ends in death? See, we want a heaven without death, and we want it without being bored. But we have no imagination of such a place. We cannot begin to fathom what that is. Eye has not seen, ear has not heard, nor has it even entered into the heart of man what God has prepared for those who love Him. We have no experience of this at all. But still, we know we want something. We know we want something because we know it, because we want it. But we don't know what it is we want. Mike, this is getting really deep. But this is what it is. It's really very simple. It's really very simple. What if the what we want really determines the what we are? See, we get this idea in our head lots of times that I want this. But what if it's the other way around? What if it's the what you want is really making you who or what you are? Never thought of that before. This is the core of who we are. Who we are is determined by what we want. See, we're not as much in control as we think we are. It is the want that decides the wanter, not the wanter who decides the want. Mike, this philosophy is way too crazy, man. Isn't that a strange truth about ourselves, really? It's a little strange truth about ourselves. We are never just what we are, but we're also what we're going to. Think about this for a second as you're walking along, just everyday experience, as you're walking along. One foot is where you are, and the foot in front is where you're going to be. You're not there yet, but you're still here, but you're there too. It's weird, isn't it? Life's so strange. What this all boils down to is this: we really don't know who we are. We really don't know who we are. So we're always kind of on the edge. We're always discontented. To one degree or another, aren't we? Almost always. Maybe when you saw your future spouse for the first time, oh, you complete me. No, they don't. You may think that, but you all know 6 months later, you're like, what was I thinking? Our discontent is our humanity. That's what it is to be human. That there's something inside that's not fulfilled. Does your pet dog or cat, are they discontented? No. They sleep like, crazy. They're not discontent about anything. Great peace of mind to be a pet. See, here's the quiet reality of all of this. That discontent in us is divine. It's divine. See, down deep, and I mean really, really down deep, we're all perfectionists. No, Uncle Bob's a perfectionist. He drives me nuts. So are you. So am I. We're all perfectionists. If we weren't, we wouldn't get out of bed. We would do nothing if we really down deep where it really matters. If we weren't perfectionists, we wouldn't get out of bed. We'd do nothing. So what's the end game in each human heart? No matter how evil that heart might be. Let's say the Nazis would have been successful killing all the Jews. What next? What next for a Nazi? Let's say you've won 10 national championships in a row, whatever college sport your school is in. Do you really care about winning the 11th? If you get everything in life you want, what next? But you want something. You know, some computer games sort of have this divinity built into them. Interestingly, they have this divinity built into them that you can play the game and then you'll win the game, say you win the game, and a screen comes up and says, would you like to play more? So it sort of resets the game and starts you in it again. Why? Because after you've won it, what else is there to do? But you want to keep playing it. So the computer sort of resets part of the game and you go back to playing it again. After you've won, they let you keep playing. What's the point? Isn't the point to win the game? Jesus knew this about human nature since he created human nature. His first words in the Gospel of St. John were a question. What are you looking for? Oh, that's a great question. What are you looking for? Jesus, a man of few words. What are you looking for? See, no father wants his children to be just content. He wants them to be full of joy. I have come so that you may have joy and have it to the full. Not content. I have come so that you may be content. Who wants a Messiah like that? Who wants a God that wants you to be just content? God gives us a heart that wants more than we want. Think about that. You have a heart in you, given to you by God, that He put into you, that wants more than what you want. He gives us a heart that is never content. Sounds like kind of a cruel cosmic joke. He gives us this heart, and then He says, quick, go on a scavenger hunt. Go look all over the place. They're never going to find it. But that's what He does. He sets up this strange little game. Truth is, all other things we go hunting for and go searching for, all of them might never be found. Power, fame, riches, and even if you find it, you don't have a guarantee of keeping it. But only God is guaranteed. Only God is guaranteed. Like the dad playing hide and seek with his little boy or his little girl. See, he really wants to be found. So he hides himself in some place that's really kind of conspicuous. And he stands there as the little boy or little girl's like, I found you, I found you! Thinking they found him. He brought himself to them. Every father on earth has done that. They want their children to find them. This is what Jesus means when He says, everybody who seeks finds, but only those who seek will find. When you seek me with all your heart, I will be found by you. That's what He tells the prophet Jeremiah. See, this goes all the way back through all of human history, because not much has changed between us and God. Let's take that earlier question and expand it. God comes to you and says, you can have anything you want. You can have pleasure, fame, power, anything you want, riches, glory. Nothing will be a sin. Nothing will be a sin. Nothing will ever bore you. You will never die. Anything you want. And you can have that. Only you shall never see my face. Did you feel that inside of you? That one little twitch. Did you feel that? I can have anything I want, but I'll never see you. Feel that rip inside? If even for a split second, that sense of you come right to the cliff and you stop. It's that horrible, fleeting moment that your soul cries out inside. We have this back in the book of Ecclesiastes. What does the writer tell us? That all things under the sun is vanity. Everything is a shadow of a shadow. It all comes to naught. We know this intuitively. We know this intuitively. This is why when society tells you, you guys are crazy, you go inside and remember how you're built. And think and ask the questions. This is why we keep chasing after things. This is why humanity chases after things. And the more things we get, the faster we run. And the more things we chase. Even after we have some thing, we're already plotting for the next thing, aren't we? When you're sitting there eating the entree, you're in the middle of this beautiful prime rib. What's for dessert? We're always going to the next thing because this never satisfies. Whatever it is never satisfies. Never. No matter how filled we are with things, we're never filled enough. As Shakespeare said, we are full of sound and fury, signifying nothing. Think about that. You know, the author, Peter Kraft, fantastic writer, poses a great picture. He says, imagine yourself sitting under a bridge. Now you're under a bridge, it's a busy urban area, and there's cars going back and forth and things overneath you. You know, you're sitting in the underpass. And you hear all the noise and the rattle and the whole bit. And he says, block out the noise for a second and concentrate on the bridge. So think about the bridge and start asking questions. Why is the bridge there? Well, it's there to carry people back and forth to work, right? Well, what people? Well, bankers, architects, policemen, construction workers. Ask a question. Why? Why do they have to go back and forth to it? Why? What do they do that's so important? Bankers finance the bridge. Architects design the bridge. Construction workers build the bridge, and the policemen police the bridge. So what's the point? All these people are going back and forth over the bridge so that they can keep the bridge up. There's an old Mutt and Jeff cartoon of a guy who says, Mutt comes up to Jeff, and it's the middle of the road, and there's this big pile of rocks that he's put in the middle of the road, and he puts this lantern on top of the rocks, and Mutt walks up and says, Jeff, what are you doing there? He says, I've got the lantern there so the cars coming will see the rocks. And he goes, well, why did you put the rocks there? Well, so that I could put the lantern somewhere. This is how life goes with us. Seriously, this is how life goes. That treadmill. Run around the treadmill, run around the treadmill. What's the point? So much sound and fury, signifying nothing. Ultimately, signifying nothing. See, we first find the presence of God by finding the presence of the absence of God. That's what brought Augustine around. Before our souls scream out, our hearts are restless, O God, and they shall never find rest until they rest in Thee. Until we get to that point, before that experience, we must first have the experience of Ecclesiastes. Everything under the sun is vanity. See, in us, it's not only self-deception, but there's also inner truth. And truth is stronger. May not seem like it sometimes, but truth is stronger. How boring would it have been to be Alexander the Great and have conquered the world? What did Alexander the Great do after he conquered the world? He stood on a mountain, he looked around, and he said, "Is that it? Is that it? There's no more world left to conquer." So what does he do? Dies before he's 30. See, there's no escape in the long run from the truth. Only in the short run, and only sometimes. Even hell is truth. It's truth known too late, but even hell is truth. So what do we want? What is it we want? Do we want to live longer? Do we want to be wealthier? Do we want to have more presents under the tree Christmas morning? No. Inside, what we all really know is that we don't want some sort of extension of this life. We want a different life. We want a whole different life. We want a new life. We don't want another lifeless toy. We want a puppy. We want a puppy. Even if we don't know what a puppy is, little 3-year-old, just show them little puppies, like, whoa, and it's alive. It's alive, and his life, the 3-year-old's life, changes because he's now in relation to this other life. And all of a sudden, all those little G.I. Joes and all those, he doesn't care about those anymore. Now it's the puppy. Now it's the puppy. Who told us that we should want a puppy? Where did that idea come from? Who told us that whatever we're opening up on Christmas morning is boring for us? And you could hand 1,000 things, you could have 2,000 things. When you get to item number 2,000, what else? It's how we are. Where did this idea about heaven come from? When did we first hear it? And even more strangely, how is it that we are able to understand something we have no imagination of? These are deep questions. They're simple questions, but they're deep questions, and they define what it is to be human. We've never experienced this object of our desire. We can't even imagine it. We only somehow know that it's missing. How can that be? How can it be that something we have no experience of, we're missing? I thought that was that old saying, you don't miss what you don't know. If you never had it, you don't miss it. Not in this case. But we know the unknown as some kind of long-lost friend. We pine for this unknown. It's kind of like heavenly amnesia. We know something. We can't put our finger on it. Freud says that modern man has essentially achieved what all previous ages said was the stuff of gods. That's what Freud said. It's probably not far off the truth. How many 1,500 years ago did people imagine they would be on telephones or traveling around on trains and moving all over the place? Freud sees all this and goes, oh, well, this is like gods. And then he asks a simple question, well, if that's the case, why are we so unhappy? And he gives the answer, the only answer an honest atheist could give. He says, I don't know. I don't know. Thank God for honest atheists. When we are achieving everything we think will make us happy, that's when we're the most unhappy. As soon as we get everything we want, all of a sudden that thing ticks off and it's, I've got everything I want and I'm not happy. When we don't have what we want and we're kind of in the midst of running and getting for it, we can distract ourselves. That little voice inside that says, you want me, we can muffle it out. We don't have to pay attention to it because we haven't gotten it. Once we get the things, as we start to accumulate things, we realize things are dust. Things are dust. Isn't that strange? When life treats us the best is when we're the most disappointed. God is very strange the way He set up the universe. All I need is this or that, but when I get my thises or my thatses, I'm disappointed. All I need is this. All I need is that new pair of shoes, just that kitchen extension. All I need is this, that, or the other. It's all I need. And when I get it, I'll be happy. And you get it, and you're miserable. Because now you want something else, or that wasn't right, or the shoes don't fit right, or whatever. This is why human beings must always ask questions. It's what separates us from the animals, from gods, and computers. Animals know too little to ask a question. Gods know too much to ask a question. And computers don't know anything. Computers don't think because they don't ask questions. They follow programming. That's what computers do. Even if you program a computer to ask a question, it'll never ask a question about that program. But if you tell a human, this is X and don't question it. What does the human being immediately do in our glorious humanity? We question it, because that's what it is to be human. God has put that in us. When we ask these deep, deep, deep questions down inside, these who am I questions, watch out, watch out. It's a dangerous business asking questions. When we ask a question, we create something. We bring something from non-being, from non-existence. We give it life. It comes into existence when we ask the question. And where that question leads, people have to be prepared to deal with the answer. Ask the right questions, and hopefully that will begin to lead you to heaven. We'll be back with some questions right after this. Well, welcome back. It's the question and answer part of our show, and we're talking about what are the right questions to ask. What's your name? Where are you from?
Hi, I'm Bob from Berkeley.
Hello, Bob.
Hi, I was talking to a very angry man about everything, life, everything, and he said we don't ever deserve to be Christian. I had no idea how to answer him or what to say to him.
We don't deserve to be Christian. We don't deserve to go to heaven.
Right. I assume he will never see heaven thinking that way.
Well, we don't know that, but I think it's first of all, pray for somebody. People like that need prayers. They're lost. Who knows what pool of anger that's coming out of for whatever reason. But on one level, he's right. We don't deserve heaven. Nobody has a claim on heaven. The only claim we have is that we believe that since God has told us that if you believe in Him, love Him, and that et cetera, if you do all of these things, that you will get heaven. Then in a sense, with a small d, we deserve heaven because we're reliant on God's trust. We have faith that He's going to do what He said He was going to do. We have hope that He's going to, that we trust that He'll do what He says, and out of love that He'll do this for us. So in that sense, we deserve heaven, but we don't have a claim on heaven. Like, God, you owe me this because I was a good person. That's not how it works. So in a sense, he's right, but I'm not sure, what he means by that. Maybe he's just feeling horrible about himself, which is probably why he needs prayers.
Yeah, I didn't know what to say to him. I had no answer.
Yeah, he's that's a shame. It's sad, but that's why we pray. We all help each other get to heaven, right?
Right.
That's the very first thing I said at the show. Remember, society doesn't help point people to heaven anymore because society's given up on the idea of heaven because it's given up on God. So this is why when people come to us, we have to be prepared to help.
Thank you.
Thank you. What's your name? Where are you from?
Chris, I'm from Assumption Grotto, Detroit.
Hello, Chris.
Hi, I got a question. What is the ultimate question for everyone, and what if it can't be answered?
The ultimate question is, why am I here? That's your ultimate question.
Okay.
Because that's the doorway into everything else, and that can be answered. You just have to keep asking every question. Every time you get an answer, you'll get 5 more questions. And there's kind of an infinitude with these questions. One always leads to another, but when they're all done, it all kind of becomes one thing. So as St. Paul says, in the end, God will be all in all. So we move through our lives, we move through our time and space, always asking questions. And we do. Every day of our life we ask, how many questions do you ask just in the normal run of your life every day? Am I going to the store? Or did I go get this? Whatever. But on a spiritual level, God is supplying the answers to the questions, not us. Our reason is cooperating with the faith that God has given us, and those two streams kind of come together, faith and reason, and we begin to see the answers. But those answers, we're going to stand in heaven, and even in eternity, and say, why did you love me so much? That question will be answered for eternity. There will be no end to the answer to that question. We'll just continue to have it revealed to us forever.
Sounds beautiful.
That is beautiful. Thanks very much.
Thank you.
What's your name? Where are you from?
Chet from Berkeley.
Hello, Chet from Berkeley.
As Catholics, is our map to heaven receiving the Eucharist faithfully at Mass and practicing the sacraments?
Sure, absolutely. Jesus says, why do we receive the Eucharist? So that we can be in Jesus. That's why. And Jesus is in the Trinity. how we get, when Jesus says no one gets to the Father except through me, that's what he means. We have to be in him because he is in the Father. How many times does he say that in the Gospel of John? Know that the Father is in me and I am in him. It's that stepping into Christ that steps us into the Trinity. And that is heaven. That's the possession of God. Not possession as in we own it, but possession as in we are totally consumed by it. There's a priest that comes by and visits here quite often, a wonderful priest, and he has a wonderful blessing. At the end of his blessing, I can't remember the whole thing, but at the very end of his blessing, I'm always struck by the very end of it, and he says, and may that love which brought you forth stay with you until it consumes you into eternity. What a beautiful
Beautiful.
is that beautiful? That's just beautiful. That's what it is. So that love consumes you into eternity, and you're in it forever. And like we talked about in the other question, that that we will be in eternity, asking, why did you love me so much? And God will just keep showing us, because an infinite God loves us infinitely. There will be no end to that love. It's a lot better than just thinking about turning to dust, right?
It is. Yeah.
Thank you.
All right, thank you.
What's up, Frank?
Hello there, Michael. I wish to dispute your claim that what you want defines who you are. For the past several years, I've been teaching catechism, and I start my classes with 5 big questions. And I have them in order I'll start with 2 through 5, are who am I? Why am I here? What do I want? That's 4th. And what will I do? And I claim that each of those, you have to know the answer to the preceding question before you know before you can ask the next question. And the most important question that I give to my kids is, who is Jesus? Can you explain what you want, or how you can know what you want without knowing who you are first? How you can ask that question?
You can't. It's a good point. You can't. You can't know who you are without knowing what you want. That's why you have to ask the question, what is it I want? So how do people answer that? No, everybody wants happiness, right? That's the answer to the question. We are programmed in such a way that we can't do something that doesn't make us happy, at least that we think will make us happy. No, even the guy who throws himself out of the window, on the 20th story of the building because he just found out he was bankrupt. He prefers death. He thinks he'll be happier in death than walking around the world being bankrupt. Every single thing we do, we're programmed to make ourselves happy, our decision. The problem is that different things come to us and present themselves as happiness, and we reach after them and find out, whoops, it's just air, there's nothing there. So the first question you ask is, who am I? Who am I? You're not going to immediately, if somebody's never really heard of God, and which most of the culture today operates on this level, maybe not heard of him, but it's not important to them. They're indifferent to God and religion and truths, eternal truths. They want the latest, PlayStation or something. That's what make them happy. So who am I? That's your first question. Who am I? Well, that's a very deep question. And if I get to the end of that question and all I am at the end of my questioning is I'm just some dude floating around like dust in the air, and one day I'm going to die, and that's the answer to the question, well, that's a pretty dismal way to go. And that's a dismal way to see the universe. Do some people arrive at that as an answer? Yeah, they do. So what do? They say, well, I'm going to be dead in 10 years, so for the next 10 years, I'm going to just live it up and eat, drink, and be merry, for tomorrow I die, in the scriptures. So when you look at a question like that, the first thing you have to say is, who am I? What in that question, who am I, are all of your questions. Mm-hmm. Why am I here? Well, that why am I here answers who I am. All of those questions answer who I am, which is why when God the Father says, before I formed you in the womb, I knew you. I knew you. Now you have to answer the question, who are you? Does that help?
I guess so. I think you're agreeing with me.
I am agreeing with you.
Oh, okay. Very good. Thank you.
Thank you. All that to agree with you. We'll be right back right after this. Well, welcome back to the One True Faith, talking about what's the meaning of life. The meaning of life is getting to heaven. This isn't tough. The people figured this out 2,000 years ago. Get to heaven. Now, what's your responsibility as somebody who believes in Christ and that Christ came to earth and established a church, and that church is to get people to heaven, and you're members of it, what's your responsibility? Society has wiped out this notion or relegated it to little corners and little communities here and there. Your responsibility is to restore that, one by one, with every person in your life that you come in contact with, that you get the opportunity to. You are soldiers. That's why we have this as a symbol for ourselves. We have a sword. You have the sword of truth. You're supposed to use this sword. You're supposed to fight back and love your neighbors, love your enemies, do everything you can to help save souls. What does that mean? Save souls? It means get them to heaven. What's heaven? Heaven is the possession of God. How do you do this? Start them thinking. Start them asking questions. You ask questions. No matter what the world tells you, if it isn't related to God, it's a lie. And you expose the lie. Don't go along with the lie, you expose the lie. You expose the lie with the grace that you have when you're in a state of grace, and with this access to the sacraments which build up that grace and that holiness in you. This is exactly what our blessed Lord means when he says, you are the light of the world. You are the light. Bring that light out in other people. Remember, everybody has inside them self-deceit and inner truth, and inner truth wins. You are charged with turning that on inside them. God love you.